Hi, I'm Heather Dawson. Up next on the High Desert News, a plane crash near Lytle Creek in Mount Baldy and a fatal traffic collision in Hesperia. Plus a look at Victorville's budget after the election. Details coming up next here on KHIZ.
And now, High Desert News with anchor Heather Dawson, sports with Scott Galetti, and weather with Jim Dillman. Here on KHIZ.
Good evening, I'm Heather Dawson.
And I'm Jim Dillman.
Topping the news tonight, a plane went down near Mount Baldy and Lytle Creek early this morning. KHIZ reporter David Wylie has the details.
Searchers have been scouring the rugged terrain above Fontana since the single-engine plane carrying 4 passengers disappeared overnight. The Piper PA-28 was returning to Brackett Airfield in Laverne from Las Vegas when it went down last night southeast of Mount Baldy.
Sometime prior to 8:30 p.m. last night, that's when the Civil Air Patrol was notified. I don't know exactly when the plane was due into Brackett, and I don't know exactly when they left Las Vegas. There are 4 people that we believe are on board. It's a single-engine Piper PA-28 single-engine aircraft with a low wing. And as I said, there's 4 people aboard, and we're not exactly sure who they are. I understand there was a signal, an emergency locator signal, that was picked up for some time early this morning. We have since lost that signal, but we know where to focus our search at this point, which is in the hills here behind us. It's a rugged area. It's remote. The terrain varies a lot in elevation, and we have access by dirt road, but many of our searchers are on foot, some are on horseback, and we're also using some all-terrain vehicles. Unfortunately, we can't fly because it's very foggy and there are low clouds in this area, and it hasn't lifted. We're waiting for that to happen, but at this point, we're pretty much resigned to searching on the ground.
Officials say they'll keep up the search for the missing plane as long as they can, but they say that darkness and bad weather will slow down that process. Near Lytle Creek, I'm David Wylie for KHIZ.
Another tragedy occurred in Hesperia this afternoon when a Rancho Cucamonga woman lost her life in a traffic collision. KHIZ reporter David Wylie spoke with Sergeant Howard Leslie at the scene.
It looks as though the white Bonneville was northbound on Mariposa and drifted into the southbound lanes, striking the Chevy pickup head-on. The driver of the white Bonneville, a female from the Rancho area, about 55 years old, she was killed during the collision. The driver of the pickup truck suffered moderate injuries, and he was airlifted out to a local hospital in the valley. His name was Preston Shepard, and he's out of the Victorville area. He's a 33-year-old male. Of course, we're just starting the investigation. It'll be a while before we determine exactly what happened. It appears as though the Bonneville drifted into the southbound lanes.
The investigation is continuing. Deputies are investigating a traffic collision that occurred in Lancaster Sunday. 19-year-old Raul Tello, who does not have a driver's license, experienced mechanical problems with his car and spun out of control. His car hit a fire hydrant at the intersection of Avenue I and Beach at 7:20 Sunday night. Debris from the power pole struck pedestrian Sheila Henderson, who suffered head lacerations. Her condition has not been released, and Tello was cited for being an unlicensed driver. It's been almost a week after the elections, and the city of Victorville is preparing for financial hardships due to Measure E coupled with business closures. KHIZ reporter Tim Maestas has more.
Montgomery wards closed. Kmart closed. Service merchandise closed. It seems everywhere we look in Victorville, businesses big and small are shutting down, and it's taking a toll on the city.
Of the top 25 sales tax generators for the city of Victorville, 3 of the top 25 closed. While we're not predicting a decrease in sales tax, which is the major source of revenue for the general fund for the next fiscal year, we're not anticipating an increase, which we normally would.
With sales tax the #1 source of city revenue, some city employees are finding departmental budgets almost as empty as the parking lots. The city is short almost $500,000 this year, with general fund requirements at just over $15 million. With $2.1 million devoted to police and fire, money had to be taken from other departments, among them Parks and Recreation, Public Works, and the Engineering Department. And with the rejection by voters of Measure E, which would have provided $2.1 million for police and fire, city offices are limiting their services and the number of people they employ. The city has reduced its employment roster by over 15%, with 74 positions currently vacant. What that means, less attention paid to city parks, cutbacks on road improvements, an overall reduction of service to residents of Victorville.
We've had to cut back regarding graffiti. Gangs have moved into the area as a part of our natural growth. Some business people consider it absolutely critical that that be taken off as soon as possible. Because of reductions in monies, it's not removed quite as quickly.
Department heads have submitted budget proposals below last year's to the City Council, but streamlining must continue as a revenue shortfall still exists. Among those vacant positions are Assistant City Manager and Assistant Fire Chief. Officials here at City Hall are hoping business in Victorville will grow and tax revenues will increase. Until then, no word yet on when those critical positions will be filled. In Victorville, Tim Maestas, KHIZ.
On June 16th, a public meeting will be held during the City Council meeting and the budget will be finalized June 30th. An argument in Apple Valley over a missing pager led to a shooting. Edward Priest was arrested on assault with a deadly weapon charge for allegedly shooting Michael McKay in the leg. The shooting occurred at Priest's apartment on Wigwam Road in Apple Valley at 7 p.m. Sunday. The investigation is continuing. A transient sweep in Lancaster led to the arrest of 20 people. The sweep was a result of numerous complaints from residents. They included drinking in public, vehicle code violations, narcotic violations, and one felony warrant. These types of transient sweeps are ongoing in order to maintain the quality of life for Lancaster residents. Students at Mariana Elementary School received a helping hand from the High Desert Mavericks this morning. The annual Teachers versus 5th Graders softball game took place this morning at Mariana Elementary School. Mavericks General Manager Pete Thurison umpired the game.
Oh, it was a blast. These kids have a good time, and the teachers do as well. But it's a neat school. The program they have in the morning where they invite a local business person out to talk on their TV station here at the school. And it was just a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot of neat kids out here, and we had a great time.
Also taking part in the game was the Mavericks mascot, Wooly Bully. But does the staff have an unfair advantage?
We'll take any advantage we can get.
The teachers, they get professionals. They have teenagers out here. That's not fair. And they get gloves, too.
And the final score was 53-32, and the teachers won.
I was betting on the kids.
I was hoping the kids.
All right.
But at least it was good weather.
Perfect weather, as a matter of fact. Just what we forecast, a little breezy this afternoon. You're wondering about the rest of your week? We'll check it later on in this newscast.
Stay with us.
Coming up next, sports with Scott Galetti here on KHIZ.
Welcome back to the High Desert News. I'm Scott Galetti with this look at sports. The Victor Valley College Lady Rams softball program will host the first ever Ultimate Fast Pitch Clinic June 15th and 16th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. 1996 Olympic gold medalist Julie Smith and Sheila Dowdy, along with Leah O'Brien, Jana Oatkin, USA National Team Assistant Coach Shirley Topley, and Victor Valley coaches John Payne and Rudy Aguiar will all provide instruction. For information, contact John Payne at 245-4271, extension 8693. In racing news, Jay Ownby of Hesperia won the street stock main event at the Victorville Auto Raceway during the San Bernardino County Fair Friday night. Tony Green of Oak Hills, Terry Harms of Apple Valley, Henry Wesolowski of Temecula, and Luke Dodd of Riverside rounded out the top 5. Richard Headley of Rosebud was the modified main event winner. Switching over to pro baseball, the High Desert Mavericks held off the Lake Elsinore Storm 5-4 last night out at Maverick Stadium. Kevin Clark went 3 for 4 with a home run and a pair of RBIs to lead the attack for the Mavericks. Russell Jacob got the win in relief over Brian Tokarsi. The Mavericks are in Rancho Cucamonga tonight to take on the Quakes in a makeup game and in the only game going on in the Cal League tonight. Let's take a look at what happened yesterday in the Cal League as we look at the scoreboard. Mavericks a winner over the Storm 5-4. Mavericks now 34-29 on the season. Visalia sweeping a doubleheader over San Jose 11-5 and 5-1. Lancaster a winner over Modesto 9-3, and Rancho Cucamonga a winner over San Bernardino. Bakersfield got by Stockton. Actually, Stockton was a winner in that ball game 12-9. In the big leagues tonight, the Dodgers are hosting the Oakland Athletics, and the Arizona Diamondbacks are entertaining the Angels. Yesterday, the Dodgers sank the Mariners 7-4. Angels beat the Colorado Rockies 6-5, and the Diamondbacks clubbed Oakland 12-4. Switching over to the NBA Finals, last night the Chicago Bulls pounded the Utah Jazz 96-54 in Game 3 of the championship series. The Jazz broke the all-time record for the fewest points scored in a game since the inception of the shot clock. Michael Jordan led the Bulls with 24 points. Karl Malone had 22 for the Jazz. The Bulls lead the series 2-1. Game number 4 is Wednesday in Chicago. Switching over to the NHL, the Detroit Red Wings will host the Washington Capitals in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final Series beginning tomorrow in Detroit. And in tennis, Carlos Moya won the French Open. And that's a look at sports. Back to you, Heather.
Thanks, Scott. In other sports news, stock car fans got a thrill at the San Bernardino County Fair over the weekend. The stock car racing featured street stocks, lightning sprints, modified, and dwarfs tore up the tracks Friday night. The stock car race was a new event this year. Another new sporting event was the first annual cattle drive and rodeo. The great-great-grandson of the man credited for settling San Bernardino in 1851 helped herd 100 head of cattle into the county fair. Jefferson Hunt retraced his ancestors' steps Friday and Saturday in a modern-day cattle drive that covered 25 miles through Hesperia and Victorville. Hunt's great-great-grandfather, Captain Jefferson Hunt, placed the trail for a wagon road through the Cajon Pass, which quickly became a major trade route from Southern California to Utah. All these attractions and nice weather caused record-breaking attendance at the San Bernardino County Fair. The final attendance for 1998 was 110,861, which is a 20% increase over 1997, making it the best attended 9-day fair. In medical news, balding men and women have probably experienced the most hopeful year in history as one new medication for baldness keeps rolling out after another. Some are good, some are mediocre, and some are scams for sure. In the first part of his series on the new advances in balding, Dr. Bob Lanier looks at one of the more questionable theories. The story in tonight's 60-Second House Call.
Everybody has mites, little microscopic creatures that live in the cleanest person. But could the mites seen in many balding people be the real cause? Doctors are looking at the scalp through powerful television microscopes. They can actually see the little critters, something right out of science fiction movies. These little mites are not a new discovery. They're called Demodex follicularum. They were first discovered in the 1840s, but only associated with human scalp hair and baldness until right lately. As many as a dozen of these little creatures burrow head down around a hair shaft, feeding on the sebum, or the waxy materials that hair shafts produce. Now, the folks that are interested in killing this mite, people who make the shampoo Noxin, say the mite doesn't cause the baldness, but the body's inflammatory response, its rejection mechanism for the mites, might also reject the hair shaft causing baldness. Maybe, yeah. I'm Dr. Bob Lanier.
Or maybe the reason there are so many mites in balding people is that overproduction of what they feed on attracts them. The mites may be innocent in a situation of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Tune in tomorrow for part 2 of Dr. Bob Lanier's Baldness series. American Moment with James Earl Jones is coming up next.
The local report will be right back with the latest weather information with Jim Dillman.
Welcome back, everyone. Jim Dillman joins us now with a look at our local forecast. And are we ever going to have a summer?
I knew you were going to ask me that. We will have a summer. I'm just not sure if it's going to be a hot summer or a cool summer like it has been.
Hopefully a little hotter than today.
Well, today was pleasant throughout the Southland, especially in the Victor Valley. The high today only 73 degrees. Now, the Antelope Valley turned in a 75 for their high. The lows will stay in the upper 40s overnight. Still 20 degrees below normal for this time of the year. June, it should be at least in the 90s. The overnight lows, well, they'll stay in the upper 50s for this time of the year. A little bit cooler at nighttime, too. This is due to a strong upper level low over the west coast mixed with a a surface low pressure inland, and this will cause mostly sunny conditions and windy afternoons. Now, the barometric pressure topped out today at 29.85. Humidity dropped from 79% this morning to 37% right before news time. The winds were out of the southwest, moderate, around 15 to 25 miles per hour. Now, the winds peaked around 29 miles per hour in Phelan this afternoon, and the winds could be as high as 30 miles per hour and even higher in gusts in the afternoon and early evenings for the next few days. Really, it's going to remain much like it has, below normal temperatures in the mid-70s. Here's a look at our 5-day forecast. Partly cloudy, breezy, 76 on Tuesday. Overnight low tomorrow night, around 50 degrees. On Wednesday, mostly sunny, breezy, 78. Still much cooler than what it should be. The overnight low hanging in there at around 50 degrees. Thursday, 81 as it moves up, mostly sunny. Still breezy in the afternoon, winds around 15 to 25 miles per hour. Mostly sunny, breezy, 83 for Friday. Getting close to the weekend, that's what it's going to be like. The first day of the weekend, mostly sunny, breezy, 84. So even though it's not into the 90s, we're getting out of the 70s into the 80s. We're working our way towards summer.
That's good news.
That's good news.
Thanks, Jim. And now Ron Wilson has tonight's financial update.
Well, we're wrapping up our discussion about the 5 C's of credit. That is, what lenders look at when they consider your loan application. They look at character, they look at capacity, they look at cash flow, capital, they look at collateral, they also look at conditions. That's right, the economic conditions of our area certainly were a factor the past several years as lenders evaluated loan applications. They had to take into consideration the fact that real estate values were declining. That's something that was reality. So if they looked at your loan request today thinking the real estate values may go down, that was a condition that could affect down payment and other factors in the loan decision. Conditions also affect businesses in a very real way because sometimes a business may be part of an industry that's in decline. Perhaps the industry itself has a problem. There's something that's causing their trends to not be favorable. Therefore, the lender would say, what are you doing, Mr. Businessman or Mr. Businesswoman, to address these issues? Your industry is suffering for whatever reason. For instance, over the past several years, there have been tremendous changes in the fast food industry. So someone would ask, well, let's look at your sales compared to someone else's sales. A condition of that loan would be your documentation of what you're doing different to address the issues of sales. If the sales are down for the industry, or if they're down for your particular business, then you're going to have even more explaining to do about what you're doing to overcome those conditions. There's no question that conditions can also affect individuals. Certainly, if you're in an income situation where you're working for someone who has a reputation for not doing too well and perhaps being gone tomorrow, and that's public knowledge, then you may be in a condition where they would say, what is your job stability? And indeed, on real estate applications, the question is often asked, what is the probability of continued employment? So that's a condition that certainly would be examined. Your employer is being asked that question, and they would say the probability is not good because of pending layoffs. Well, that would certainly be a condition where you could expect the lender would have a major problem. By the same token, it's really none of their business if you're a good employee and everything is okay and there aren't any problems, just how good an employee you are, whether or not you're there to stay. Obviously, the employer would not be expected to go beyond what is the norm and report conditions that are actually far more favorable than they would be, and factually far more revealing than they should be, because that should not be part of the loan process. So now we've looked at the 5 C's of credit. You are armed, you're ready to go to the lender boldly and to say, hey, listen, this is what my situation is. I can address the questions you've asked, the issues you've raised. I know exactly what you're looking for. You are as informed as you possibly can be as a consumer or a business person to address the issues of obtaining that loan. This is Ron Wilson. You make it a very good week.
And now for an American Moment with James Earl Jones.
One thing I always enjoyed about it was that you could stick your arm out of the window when you were taxiing, which was kind of cool, so to speak.
When you look at Arthur Harmon of San Francisco, you're looking at more than 50 years of flying experience.
A lot of time.
Here he is in the 1960s as a man of the Strategic Air Command, pilot of one of the huge reconnaissance aircraft of the Cold War. And here he is where it all began, in Alabama in the 1940s at the Tuskegee Institute. Arthur Harmon was one of the famous Tuskegee Airmen. The country still was segregated, even the military, even with a war on. But the government was goaded into letting some young black men train to be pilots at Tuskegee. They went on to become the Red Tail Squadrons. No bomber of the Second World War that was sent out with a red tail alongside it to keep it safe ever was lost to enemy fire. As for Arthur Harmon and his half-century of flight, he knew from the very beginning that bigotry was not going to stop him.
Nobody could tell me that I couldn't fly.
Here's to the Tuskegee Airmen, who were better to their country than their country was to them.
That'll do it for the news tonight. Be sure to join us tomorrow at 6 and 10 for more local news. And coming up in our credits are the Mariana students singing their favorite baseball anthem. I'm Heather Dawson.
I'm Jim Dillman. Good night, everyone.